Could I have everyone's attention, please? Can anyone hear me? There we go. Hey, Jennifer. There's always someone who's the last. So welcome, everyone. This is our fourth meeting of the WRC-15 Industry Advisory Committee. It's been 6 months since our last meeting. I've even had a new job since then, so all sorts of things change. And all of the working groups seem to have made extraordinary progress. So let me say congratulations to everyone before we get into the real work of the committee. The conference, as you all know, is now confirmed for November 2015. So we are about halfway done with our work. That we have another half to go actually seems a little daunting to me, and in truth, the last half is always harder than the first half. So while I do wish to congratulate you all on what you've done so far, I look forward to seeing you keep the nose to the grindstone and keep the whole process moving forward. So with that, I ask you turn to the agenda, which is document WAC-046. Take just a moment to look at it if you haven't already. Are there any comments on the agenda? Hearing none, I will treat the agenda as approved. Can I now ask you to turn to the minutes of our last meeting, our third meeting? You can find that in document WAC-042. And take a minute to look at those documents. Does anyone have comments on the meeting, on the minutes of the third meeting? Hearing none, we will treat those minutes as approved. Before we move on to substance, I'd like to turn to procedure for just a minute, if you all would indulge me. This process generally works so smoothly. We tend to forget that there are actually rules and procedures that guide what we do. Sometimes questions arise or confusion arises, and since we are now halfway through the process, and the last time we touched on these kinds of things was at our first meeting, I wanted to take a couple of minutes to talk about process and procedure as we move towards the rest of our work. First of all, I want to remind you what we are. We are an industry advisory committee. As a reminder, we are not the decision makers. Federal officials are decision makers. We gather together to provide the best advice we can as members of industry to those decision makers. And we operate by consensus. Membership on this committee, which is a federal advisory committee under the Federal Advisory Committee Act, or FACA, is determined based upon applications submitted by companies on behalf of asking that certain individuals be approved for the committee. These applications are vetted by the FCC General Counsel's Office and approved by the FCC Chairman. The most important criteria, perhaps, in looking at these applications is to make sure that there is balanced representation among all of the parties that might be interested in the work of the committee. Most of our committee meetings, if not all of our committee meetings, are the FACA meetings, the big committee meetings are open to the public. Our working group meetings are generally also open to the public, which, by the way, for those of you who've worked in other agencies, you may know this is atypical, but these are working group committees, our groups are also open to the public. Folks can come in, and if you are not a member of the committee, you are an observer. And while we encourage observers are not permitted under the rules of the FACA to participate in the work of the committee. They cannot offer advice. They may be asked to provide information on occasion, but if you are not a member of the committee and you are an observer, you are just that, an observer. Having said that, the committee is designed to provide balanced representation of all views. As a result, particularly given the length of the process in preparing for the work, there may be changes in committee membership during the process because issues arise and certain stakeholders may find that they were not represented because their issues did not seem to be important or seem to be part of the process at the beginning, and they may suddenly be inserted into the process. As a result, membership on the advisory committee remains open during the process that we are going through. People who find that their interests are not represented may submit applications during the process. I understand a number of parties have recently done so, and those applications, I understand, have recently been acted upon by the FCC, and I think we may be able to announce that at the end of this meeting. I understand that some people, having looked at the initial public notice, may have mistakenly concluded that there was only a narrow window in which to apply. I'm saying here publicly that is not accurate, but we are also going to be issuing a public notice and putting it on the public record so that there is no mistake about that going forward. So, with that, I'm prepared to move on unless anyone has any questions about this. Good. Okay. Let's move on to the NTIA draft preliminary views and proposals, and I'll turn to Diane to handle that.
Okay. Thank you, Scott. Good morning, everyone. So now we will move on to the substance of the issues, as Scott was saying, and turn to the work of the federal side. I know that our colleagues in the federal agencies have been doing an awful lot of work over the last couple of months and are making very good progress towards moving forward on preparations for the conference. In the interim, we've received some additional input from NTIA in terms of several documents. Specifically, the documents put forward for consideration by this committee include documents WAC 043, 044, 045, 047, and 048. They're either on the website or, for those of you in the room, they're, of course, over on the table. And the relevant informal working groups have already been considering these documents for some time in most cases. I don't see Darlene Drazanovich in the room. Is there anyone from the federal agencies that wants to make any comments with respect to these documents? Please.
Thank you. My name is Brandon Mitchell. I work
Great.
for Darlene. No official comments regarding the proposals. I know the IWG groups have been working on these pretty diligently. So on behalf of Darlene and NTIA, we look forward to reconciling future items with Mr. Roitblatt. We have an RCS meeting tomorrow, so some of these issues will be dealt with soon. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Much appreciated. Some of these documents I believe, will be contained in the discussion of the informal working group, so I think we can deal with any specific comments or questions there. Okay, let's turn now to the IWG1, the Maritime Aeronautical and Radio Services, and let me invite the chair of IWG1, Chris Hutchinson, from Aviation Spectrum Resources, Inc., to report on IWG1 progress. Thanks, Chris.
Actually, the vice chair.
Excuse me.
Okay,
Consider
IWG1.
a battlefield promotion.
Okay, sounds good. IWG1 has met 3 times since your last WAC meeting, and we have one document for the committee's consideration, and that's document WAC 49, and this deals with agenda item 1.18 to consider primary allocation to the radio location service for automotive applications in the 77.5 to 78 gigahertz range in accordance with Resolution 654. I'd like to thank the members of IWG1 for their cooperative attitude in helping develop this paper, and I present this draft proposal for the committee's approval.
Great. Thank you, Chris. Are there any comments with respect to this document? Hearing none, I consider it approved. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Any other comments?
That's it.
Okay, great. Scott?
Okay, let's turn to IWG2 and Terrestrial Services. I understand both the chair and the vice chair are unable to participate in today's meeting, perhaps because it's so beautiful outside. And so the status report falls to Dante Ibarra, who is the FCC coordinator for IWG2. Dante?
Thank you. Good morning. Just to give you a report on behalf of Charlie Rush and Jane Stankiewicz, who are unable to be here, IWG2 has met 3 times since the last WAC meeting. IWG2 would like to present for consideration to the committee a recommendation for a WRC proposal under Agenda Item 1.1, which concerns the 420 to 450 megahertz band. The recommendation that IWG2 prepared is presented in document WAC 050. In this document, the recommendation provides some edits to the NTIA proposal on this issue, which is can be seen in document WAC 048. And in this document, it's noted that while proposed edits appear quite extensive, it's really, for the most part, they only reflect some of the accurate description of results obtained from past ITUR studies, namely report ITUR M2110, which is related to the frequency range 420 to 450 megahertz. In general, IWG2 concurs with the proposed approach offered by NTIA and the document WAC 048, and with that, IWG2 seeks approval of this recommendation. IWG2 expects to continue development of additional proposals addressing WRC-15 agenda items, namely agenda items 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, and 1.4. The next IWG2 meeting is planned for December 6th. And again, we have this document WAC 050 for consideration and approval by your group. Thank you.
Do we have comments on document WAC 050? Hearing none, we will deem that document approved. Thank you. We'll now turn to IWG3, Space Services, and I'd like to invite Jack Wengerneck from DirecTV to come up, who's chair of IWG3.
So good morning, everyone. So let's see, IWG3 has had 4 meetings since the last WAC meeting. A couple of chaired by me, a couple chaired by my vice chair, Kim Baum. We are a very strong team. So we have had 4 meetings, and we have 1 document to present to the committee today. That's WAC document 051. This is a draft proposal on agenda item 1.10, which is the possible new MSS allocations 22 to 26 gigahertz. It's a fairly straightforward proposal. Essentially, it's proposing no change to the to Article 5 of the radio regulations, so no identification of additional MSS allocations in the 22 to 26 gigahertz band, and it's giving background and reasons there too. That's the only document that we have to present, but I will have some other comments to make.
Very good. Do we have any comments on document WAC/051? Hearing none, we'll deem that document approved. Diane?
Jack, did you have any other?
Yes.
Oh, you did. I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry. As regards the NTIA draft proposals that were introduced under agenda item 5, one of those proposals on agenda item 1.11 does in fact fall under the purview of IWG3. The IWG considered that. We support that proposal, and therefore we would encourage that it be adopted as a U.S. proposal to WRC-15. And finally, the other agenda items that fall under our purview all are being dealt with by groups that are whose series of meetings are coming up here in the next month or 2 in Geneva. So I'm hopeful that after the next round of ITU meetings, that we'll be able to develop some additional draft proposals before our next WAC meeting.
Very
That's
good.
it.
Before you step down, do Do we have any additional comments on Jack's proposal to support the NTIA document to which you referred? Any comments? Okay, we'll treat that proposal as accepted, as is the NTIA document.
Good. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Jack. Moving now on to IWG4. And let me invite Steve Baruch to come up, who's chair of IWG4 with Spectrum 5, to report on IWG progress. And while he's coming up, let me give kudos to this working group as having the most documents to present to the WAC. So thank you, Steve, and well done.
Thank you, Diane. I think I mentioned at an earlier meeting we were the caboose, and we're starting to catch up on our work.
You may be pushing that train, actually.
All right. We have several documents for you as well as a report this morning. The first document in document WAC 52 are the comments of IWG4 on a document. I don't actually have the WAC number because this was presented from NTIA to the WAC for our March meeting, and it took us a while to get the comments in. So I apologize for not having that number at my fingertips. But this is on agenda item 7, which is one of the two documents in that, two proposals from NTIA in that WAC document, or in that earlier WAC document. And what we have here are comments on a proposal for agenda item 7 and a revision for language to number 1149 of the radio regulations. And you'll see in red line and strikeout form with some highlighting the comments that we're proposing to the committee for communication back to NTIA during the reconciliation process on number 1149. So I offer that to you for consideration.
So, Alex, if you could please clarify which document we're talking about, just to make sure we're all on the same page.
Well, I think the comments from IWG4 are on document WAC 32, which we received at our last meeting. But the document itself is in WAC 52, as Steve explained.
Okay, great. Okay, good. Thanks.
Yep.
Are there any comments on this document, and indeed on Steve's proposal? Okay, hearing none. Steve's proposal and recommendation is approved.
Thank you. Our next document is WAC 053. This one is being brought to us for consideration for a second time. If you recall, we had a draft preliminary view out of IWG4 on agenda item 9.1.5 at our meeting last fall. There were some comments, and this was sent back to IWG.
It was the only interesting thing that happened at that meeting, as I recall.
Oh, you call it interesting. I may have a different opinion on that. But this came back to IWG4, and we considered it at length, and I'm happy to report that we were able to reach a consensus within IWG4 on this draft preliminary view. On agenda item 9.1.5, which deals with resolution 154 from Ward 12, and you'll see that on the second page of the document, and I offer that to you for consideration. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Steve. Are there any comments on this document, WAC 53? Hearing none, we deem it approved.
Good. Thank you. Our final document this morning is in WAC 054. This is comments of IWG4 on the NTIA proposal that was presented to us this morning in document WAC 044. This deals with agenda item 9, and in particular 9.2 on difficulties or inconsistencies encountered in the application of the radio regulations. We have a detailed set of proposals from NTIA in this document. IWG4, after consideration of this, offers only one very minor change to the last proposal from NTIA, and you'll see that on the back page of the document in strikeout form. So there's a revision that IWG4 suggests to the proposal for an addition to a footnote to Section 2 of Article 5, and I offer that to you for consideration.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Are there any comments on the proposed document that Steve has just described? Okay, hearing none, consider that accepted.
Okay. And then finally this morning, I do need to report from IWG4 that we considered document WAC 045, the NTIA proposal, for agenda item 9.1.1. This is principally an issue that is not for industry. It deals with a subject and a frequency band that's more on the NTIA side of the house. We considered the draft preliminary view, and concluded that we have no comments for the committee on this proposal. So I wanted to pass that along. Thank you.
Are there any comments on the no comment stance? Okay, thank you.
Okay, so before I conclude my report, I just would like, and I didn't hear this earlier, so I want to offer a welcome to Damon Ladson, who is taking over as the vice chair for IWG4, and we're very happy and fortunate to have him with us. So that concludes my report.
Well, I certainly approve of that remark about Damon, is all I'm saying. Thank you, Steve.
Thanks, Steve.
You're welcome.
All right. First, let's turn to our future meetings. If you look at document WAC-004, we have a revised timeline. And our fifth meeting of the full advisory committee is set for March 12th at 2014 at 11 a.m. Jennifer, please put that on your calendar so you don't tell me I've forgotten to tell you. And now we'll turn to other business. There have been some changes in employment and availability of committee leadership, some of which has already been referred to. So we have a new committee structure which is set forth in document WAC-003, if you want to just take a look and see what changes have been made. With that, let me open it up to the floor to see if there is any other business or any new business. Hearing none, I'd like to thank you all for your continued great work, your continued participation, and I look forward to seeing you in a few months. Thank you.